Welcome to the final ministry shift of the year. All year on the ministry shift, we've sought to tell the story of ministry as it responds to COVID, lockdown, Black Lives Matter, shaping for mission, more lockdown, and all interwoven with the regular challenges of the church's year. And every week in the ministry shift, we've tried to gather together a panel of people who we think can tell some of those stories from different angles. But today it's over to you. In the Ministry Shift Awards, we hear who has impressed you with their creativity, their responsiveness, their straightforward faithfulness this year. And in the next few minutes, we'll hear from some of the people that you've nominated. But first, we're joined for the first time on the Ministry Shift by a very special guest. And no, it's not Santa.
I want to say how remarkable I think so many of our clergy and lay ministers have been in adapting to the very unusual circumstances that we've been experiencing over this last year. Our instincts in ministry are firstly to gather people together in fellowship, and at the same time to reach out in care. Gathering people together in fellowship has been really complicated, if we mean in-person fellowship, and subject to lots of restrictions, and likewise reaching out in care, which is so crucial to who we are, has been really difficult. But watching successive episodes of the ministry shift, I have been so impressed by the way people have shown flexibility, have adapted, have learned new ways both of gathering people and of reaching out, and have proved that actually when we set our mind to it, the Church of England, or certainly the Church of England in this diocese, can be nimble in responding to change and seize the opportunity which is presented to us in the power of the Spirit to develop new patterns of ministry and mission. So I just want to say how impressed I am by those in ministry in this diocese, and how helpful I think it's been to have the ministry shift to chart some of those changes, to share good stories, and to encourage all of us in these extraordinary times.
Gathering people in fellowship and reaching out in care. That has been the task of ministry, both lay and ordained this year, and it was a delight that you nominated lay people as well as clergy. One of the big stories of the year was the challenge of taking the church online, and our first nomination is for Foster Rogers and David Yardley, church wardens at Barton-under-Needwood. Earlier this week I spoke to Foster, who told me about taking the church online during a year-long vacancy.
We struggled. We've had to learn, A pair of geriatric church wardens have had to learn all this rendering and uploading, not downloading, and a whole new vocabulary and using video editing equipment. That's been a major problem for us.
But you have learnt it.
Yeah, we have learnt it, and we've delivered.
Have you enjoyed it?
Oh yes, it's been great fun, but it's a bit sort of scary.
And you've done that in a vacancy.
If I just say, that's the box set of videos we've made. We've made 32 videos or something like that, 32 DVDs, yes. Yeah.
Well, HBO will be knocking soon, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah.
So you've done that because you're in a vacancy.
Yeah.
Did that feel like a responsibility?
Yes, I think it did. If we go back to the beginning of the vacancy, all the received wisdom was that you were going to lose congregation during the vacancy. And I think my colleague and I started the vacancies in November last. saying is, what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen? And I think we made the service coming to church exciting. We got visiting priest, retired priest, to come in, and we stood outside the front door and welcomed everybody. And within a few weeks, we found that the numbers were starting to creep up. I don't think the number of congregations changed, but people were coming to church more often.
Okay.
That was interesting. And so that when lockdown came, we said, what are we going to do? We crept the congregation up, and we just got to sit there and let it fall apart. And I think that was the major driver, that we didn't want to lose the gain that we had made.
Well, the challenges of this year have sometimes weighed us down, but they've also pushed us to creativity and pushed us to finding a hope and holding it out for those around us. And for some of us, that's been a space of flourishing vocation and of finding our feet, as I found out when I spoke to Beth Flashman, who is parish administrator at Cheadle with Freehay, and so much more. You were nominated for something called Lights of Hope, especially. And if I've understood this right, Lights of Hope, it kind of came from the challenge of All Souls Tide and how to get all the people who would normally want to come to a memorial service, how to give them that space. Do you want to just describe it very briefly?
Okay, so Lights of Hope started, I shall be perfectly honest, from the cathedral's Lights of Hope thing. And I thought, how can we do that on a far smaller scale locally and individually? And I know friends who've lost friends and family to COVID and also throughout the pandemic, and they find a lot of comfort in lighting a candle, as we all do. But unfortunately, we weren't able to invite them into church to do that. So I had this very mad idea about 2:00 one morning of dedicated solar lights. We lit up both of our churchyards with just under 200 solar lights, each dedicated to a lost loved one. Or what was really nice was that some people took the time just to light them to say thank you. Thank you to the funeral directors, thank you to the carers. There was one for the care homes. And it was just a really lovely way of bringing the community together with all these bright, shining lights of hope, really.
I loved interviewing the people that you nominated for these awards. Foster and Beth are both rooted in their community, and their love and enthusiasm for that community really came through. And it was obvious how that drove their shifting ministry in this year. Of course, so much about ministry is really responsiveness, noticing what is going on and working from it. And so the ministry shift, the premise of this show, it might not be something that we automatically notice doing. Our next nomination is Richard Westwood, a team vicar in the Burntwood group. He was nominated for his part in Burntwood Be a Friend, the church working in partnership with other community groups to support the community through a vulnerable time. He told me that he'd got to know his community better than ever before this year, and I asked him whether he had been conscious of making a ministry shift.
I certainly know that this year has been perhaps the most challenging of the years that I've been an ordained minister. And because it's been for most of the year, and I think for most of the folk I know who are in ordained ministry, it's been almost week to week, different each week. And so you don't have a sense that you're entering some period of a number of months where there's going to be a long stretch to go with. So I guess it's only looking back that you think, wow, that's been quite a shift, really, because so much of this year has been another set of new arrangements, new challenges, which you kind of weren't prepared for, even though you had an idea there'd be something different. So I don't think I knew it was a big shift, but looking back, I can see that it has been.
Lots of little shifts that have added up to something else.
Yeah, I guess so. And I think that it's the variety and change. Whereas if you know you're starting a new post or a new role, or there's a new team being formed, you have an awareness that this is going to be different. Whereas I think what's happened for this year for lots of people is that there hasn't been an easy ability to predict what the next week might involve. So it felt like you're always trying to do a new mini shift, if you like, I suppose.
How much of that has been spiritual as well as practical?
I've got to say all of it, because I found for myself this year that there's been many more practical pulls upon my time and thought. And those are the points where you've ended up saying, well, God, I don't think I've got the equipment for this. So it's kind of the practical need and the newness of a range of different challenges that have cropped up have meant that myself and other colleagues locally have just thought, well, we don't know where to go with this, Lord. So will you help us? So I don't think it's theologically been sort of a wrestling particularly, but more from the point of view of being feeling that you really hadn't got many resources to deal with what you thought might be coming, or stuff arrived and you didn't quite know what best to do with it. So that's where I think it's been a mixture of spiritual and practical, all woven together in one big lump.
Ministry is so specific and so pastoral, and it was that urge to provide a pastoral care that drove so many of us online earlier this year. Online church means online worship, but it means so much more than that too. Mark Wilson, interim minister from St James's and St Paul's in West Bromwich, was nominated for taking so much of his church's life online with imagination and with energy. Mark told me how going online was a pastoral response for him, for his community.
Before lockdown began, we had morning prayer and evening prayer twice, or so one evening prayer a week in midweek and 2 morning prayers midweek, and a Bible study. And that went from that to morning and evening prayer every day. And when I say every day, it was absolutely every day for 8 weeks before I decided I should take a day off. So there was a spiritual element there of actually, to get through this, what we need Bible, we need prayer, and we need community. And that's what we tried to provide. And structures of the day, actually, on which the Church of England daily offices do very well.
So that was a pastoral response to the emerging situation. Oh, that's fascinating. And the people who nominated you, as I said, they spoke about how much stuff you'd taken online, and that was everything. It wasn't just worship; it was also the things you've mentioned: the daily prayer, the discipleship, the youth groups, pastoral care, and all of that. One of them also described you as a bit of a geek, by which I think they meant. Is there a sense in which you're playing to your strengths, Mark?
I like computers, I like tech, and so when it came to using OBS and recording music and doing videos and stuff like that, it's the sort of stuff that I can easily put my hands to, because it's just what I do normally. So I had to learn how to use OBS. I've never used it before. Thankfully, there was another minister who was able to help me with that slightly, and we were able to talk it through. But we just kind of went, well, let's get online, let's do what we can, and we'll learn as we go.
Mark reminded me that ministry is also about receiving the gifts that God has given us, the gifts around us and the gifts within us. We set up the ministry shift as just one way of helping people to see the gifts in each other's ministry. Adapting to tech this year has been hard for us all, and many who were nominated were feeling pretty worn out. But new skills are established and learnt too now. David Babbington talked, as Richard and Mark did, about having adapted to the new reality in ways that would stay strong for the future. David is interim minister at St John's, Walsall Wood. He was nominated for his pastoral attention to his church community, ensuring that no one was forgotten and that every member of the church was phoned by someone each week. And in our interview, I asked him what it would be like if 2021 was like 2020. He was just one of many to say that keeping the gains of last year would be important.
I think I could cope quite well now. So therefore, I think because you learn through as you're going along. So therefore, the different stages you do, you put new things in all the time. So whereas it used to take me 14 hours to put a Sunday service together, it now takes me 5, because I then got hold of new equipment that streamlined things. But it's also finding skill sets. So one of the things that we did at the very beginning was we joined together with St Mark's Church next door. And we realised that the two parishes working independently was not a good thing. So therefore, if we worked together and we became what is called a plurality, so therefore we're totally independent, but we do everything joined up, then we can actually pool resources, do it in a bigger way. We can actually increase our mission. So we could actually carry on as we are now for the future.
And what are you looking forward to next year, do you think?
Well, apart from a break, that would be a really nice thing. I think maintaining the bond that we've got with the parish next door, because that has worked out really well, but also keeping up the dual economy that we've got of online and in person now. I'll never let the online go. And although that's difficult and some people say that's not good, it's things like some of the old parishioners who we'd let go of because they're too old to go to church now join in, even in after service coffee Zoom. They actually join in and they talk to other people from the church. So it's things like that. I'm looking forward to actually seeing the church grow and to see more inclusion and to actually see us do more mission as a result of this.
It was pretty exciting to hear these stories of challenge and joy mixed together. I think every single nominee talked about the ways in which 2020 had been tough, as well as redemptive. I also want to mention the one nominee we didn't get to interview, Father Stuart Howes, Vicar of Hadley Holy Trinity and Wellington Christchurch, who had the extraordinary task of beginning his first incumbency early in the lockdown. But to end with, I want to bring you some of an interview with the first person I ever invited to take part in the ministry shift. Malcolm Mycock is also an interim minister. He is at the Bucknell team in Stoke-on-Trent, and as they say, our postbag was literally deluged with nominations for him. And many of our nominees look back on a year where reaching out to the community has been an urgent desire which they've felt bubbling up inside them. And Malcolm characterises that evangelistic heart as much as anyone, with a true belief that in Jesus' gospel of love we have the good news that people will want to hear.
It started in the lockdown. Well, it actually started at Easter. I just thought we couldn't have people in the church at Easter, so I couldn't not do something. So we just stood outside church and just we played some music, said a prayer, and reminded people what Easter was all about, basically. But as lockdown went on, we just felt that there was a real need just to have a presence on the estate. So many people were locked behind closed doors, frightened to come out. So much uncertainty about COVID. You know, how do we catch it? How contagious is it? So we just went around the estate and said, listen, can we plug in at your house? And we kind of plugged in through a window, you know, people kind of, and they plugged in. We got this really loud speaker system, and we did very simply. We said hello. reminding people where we were, saying that we were there for them. We played Amazing Grace because everybody knows it. And we prayed for them and just kept reminding them that, you know what, that this will come to an end, and just telling them the good news of Jesus. And that kind of, as we did it a couple of times, people kept saying, "Oh, will you come to our street? Will you come to our street?" And the Abbey really embraced it, and it's been amazing. It's been a difficult time, hasn't it? But I'll tell you something, the community around here is just, it's something else. It's been amazing.
And you've made that connection, yeah. Is it hard to do? Do you have to push yourself to do that?
To me, I get something, I call it holy indigestion, I do, all right? I get this uncontrollable urge to do something, this enthusiasm, and I tell you something, nothing will stop me doing it. Do you know, it's like, and I know it's from God, and I've kind of lived by that for the past 10 years, and I've got to say, as of yet, I've not been arrested or put in prison, so that's a good sign, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So is it hard? No, it isn't, because my passion is, I guess I'm an evangelist at heart, and my passion is sharing the good news of Jesus, and it's what we're all about at St. John's. So any way we can do that, we'll do it. And we're sort of, I think, pop-up church or street talk, as it started to be known as, I think that's going to continue, because I think even after this, people just like that connection.
And it's so interesting, isn't it, that we often think evangelism is going to be uncomfortable, it's going to be embarrassing or whatever. We probably think we'd be embarrassed if other people do it, perhaps because we've all been in the city centre where you see the guy who's just kind of banging on his top, but you're seeing that evangelism in the street make connections in your place and your community.
I feel really passionately that we've got to be visible as church. I really do, because just being visible and just being present and just sharing that good news, people really appreciate it. And you know what? You might get the odd heckler. I mean, can I say this? We did have a couple past one of our live ones when we Facebook lived it, and they did a moonie as they walked past. But do you know what? People on the Abbey said, "Well, they look silly, didn't they?" Do you know what I mean? It didn't make it. Do you know what I mean? It was amazing. So, and I think something about what we've been doing is we keep it short. We don't start banging people. We simply say hello. We play one hymn and we say a prayer, and we leave it at that. But conversations, relationships have sprouted up through that. We've had people come to church through it. We've made some people have started coming to church and connecting with us through that. So it's been wonderful. And I would say I'd encourage more churches to get out on the streets and do that. Not in a weird, heavy-handed way. Just simply go and share the love. Share it, man. It's awesome.
Well, if this was the real world, someone would have to pick a winner. But we believe in a better world than that. And the saints in God's kingdom give him and each other the glory, which lets me off the hook. I hope you've enjoyed sharing in the celebration of these lives of ministry. A small acknowledgement will go to everyone nominated, to Foster, to Beth, to Richard, Mark, David, Stuart and Malcolm. But they're only representatives of all of those who have met the challenge of 2020 in our ministry. And I hope that you see something of your own year reflected in their words today. We're signing off from the Ministry Shift for Christmas, and we return for a third series on Tuesday the 12th of January, when we look forward to sharing the gifts and challenges of ministry with you once again. Finally, I want to say thank you to everyone who's participated in the Ministry Shift over the year and who's supported it, and particularly to Matthew Parker, who helped us find our wings early on, but above all to Simon Jones, who has worked behind the camera invisibly, but is the only reason that this show can happen. So thank you, Simon. And with the warmest wishes for Christmas and until 2021, God be with you. Goodbye.